El Salvador. Does it worth moving to El Salvador and living there? What are the pros and cons? So let's look into that. What is going to be your lifestyle? That is the first question you have to answer. You got a couple of options. So first option is that you go to El Salvador as a tourist and to spend a wonderful time for a week or two in El Salvador and spending some money there in the economy, then you're gonna definitely love it. For long term living in El Salvador, then you have to decide, okay, what is your budget and what you're willing to spend in the economy. Entering El Salvador is pretty simple, and a lot of passports have visa-free entrance. Some passports, especially from Latin America and the US, are obliged to pay like $10 fee on the entrance, and that's it. But with my passport from Europe, there is no entrance fee, so it's totally free to enter the country. And another benefit that is pretty rare compared to a lot of other countries is that you are allowed to stay in the territory for 180 days from a year without any residence permit. Also, it's important to mention that some passports, especially from Africa, and I would say most of the Africa, have to pay a $1,000 entrance fee if you want to enter El Salvador. Safety. That is a big topic, and honestly I have to say that the safety is great in El Salvador. It's been a huge change, and what the president was able to pull off is exceptional. And you will feel really safe in El Salvador as a tourist or living there. The crime rate dropped significantly, and I am able to compare with other Latin American countries. And honestly, from a safety perspective, El Salvador is a really safe country. It is really visible that the country's focus on safety was like number one priority. And now it's really visible that the country is totally different. In many other Latin American countries, you will feel less safe than in El Salvador. That I have to admit that that's the truth. Also, what is important to mention is that when the country changed, El Salvador became a safe place. A lot of people, they were forced to leave the country in 80s and 90s are now coming back to the country. So there is a huge influx and migration back to the country from Salvadoreños, because they can see that there might be a brighter future for them. That is nice to see. So I've been able to speak to various people and saying, hey, we came back last year or this year. The influx of Salvadoreños back to the country is, I would say, on all-time high. Fun, leisure, how you can enjoy El Salvador, it is really easy. If you're a surf maniac, definitely you gotta go to El Salvador, because you can be surfing all year long. Obviously during the wet season the waves are going to be higher, so if you're advanced you probably might want to go during the wet season. If you're making a 1 week trip to El Salvador, I believe you can do a lot of sightseeing, not just being on the beach, but going to a volcano. There are waterfalls, there are lakes, mountains, so you got a variety. Bitcoin, it's a big topic, and that's also the reason why we said, okay, let's move to El Salvador and let's see if we can live from Bitcoin. And long story short, the quick answer is no, it's not possible. Obviously it is possible in a certain areas and in certain zones, to be absolutely fair. So if you're going to El Salvador and you want to live from Bitcoin fully without hiccups, so you got a couple of communities where you need to be located. If you go to El Zonte, or there's another community not on the coastline but within the country, like Berlin, or in a certain parts of San Salvador, which is the capital, so you can live from Bitcoin, located away from expat community and being more in a local city on the coastline. It's not simple. So most vendors do not accept Bitcoin, and you still need to have USDs to spend. Apart from those pre-selected communities and just picking a random place on the map and saying, hey, here we are gonna stay, here we're gonna be located, and we're gonna be living from Bitcoin, it's not possible. There was a try from the government side and trying to do the Bitcoin adoption from the top, and obviously it's not working. There was a try, and I've been speaking with a lot of locals where government implemented Chivo wallet, that is the governmental wallet for Bitcoin, where you can easily swap between USD and Bitcoin. And they say, okay, here's the governmental wallet, and everybody who's gonna install it and register with the ID card is gonna receive a $30. And obviously there was a first boom, and everybody basically did it. A lot of people registered in the wallet just to receive those $30, because that was the motivation to go for it. But now talking to people, majority is not using Chivo wallet. Secondly, a lot of people lost total access to the Chivo wallet and having a hard time to renew access to the Chivo wallet, which you cannot do without the ID. So you need to somehow get the governmental ID and the password, and a lot of people were like, okay, give me the $30 just because of I will give you my ID, and if you can register it, okay, cool, we are gonna receive a $30. There was a lot of business with that just to register to receive those $30, but the reality a couple of years after is that nobody's using the Chivo wallet from the normal people. And if you have Bitcoiners in El Salvador, they're also not using the Chivo wallet. There is a really popular Blink wallet that is widely used, as my understanding is and what I've seen. But Chivo wallet is having a hard time. I personally was trying to charge the Chivo wallet. The result is that it's only accepting ID from El Salvador. When I was also finding those Chivo ATMs, a lot of time happened that there was no availability to withdraw the USDs. So I would say that project is not the project that's gonna drive the adoption in El Salvador, and it's definitely need to go from bottom up. It's also important to mention that many people in El Salvador are street vendors. It is really common in Latin America, and it's a little bit different setup and pace of the country compared to many other countries. So everybody has a job, but simultaneously everywhere you can find street vendors and selling fruits and veggies. Within the city the same, you got a big grocery store, and in front of the grocery store there are street vendors selling basically the same what is in the grocery store, but maybe from a local production, and everybody's trying to make extra money. And also that's important to mention, because in every city or village you got maybe 1-2 grocery stores, the bigger ones. But a part of that, there are many street vendors, because you don't have to commute or get to the bigger grocery store. You just go 2 minutes just around the corner. You got somebody selling some basic necessities that you might need, so it doesn't take so much time to go somewhere a couple of kilometers. You just go around the corner, buy whatever you need, and go back home, which saves a lot of time. But saying that, it would be great to see that these vendors are accepting also Bitcoin as another currency. And I understand it's not simple, because generally in El Salvador there is no need for Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. It's 100% dollarized economy, so they don't face same troubles like other countries in Latin America or in Africa. Saying that dollar works great as a medium of exchange, and for them it works. Okay, different story might be when you have an Argentinian peso or some other local currency in Africa. Their Bitcoin is something that people can escape from those national currencies. Of course, everybody's interested in store of value, and if they see that they had one day $20, another day it's $25, it is interesting to see that. But there will be a lot of work that has to be done from the bottom. Great to see about Bitcoin adoption is that local leaders are organizing meetups. They are quite regular, trying to onboard more people, explain how the Bitcoin works, how wallets work and what it is. And also a couple of they call it Bitcoin farmers markets are happening like every week or 2 weeks, so people can gather, buy basic local stuff for Bitcoin. Even though it's a really small gathering and I would say like limited, it's nice to see that there is the community and motivation to create something like that. The weather in El Salvador has 2 seasons. There is a dry season and there is a wet season. During the dry season, which is like from November to April, May, it is a nice sunny weather, light breeze, not raining at all. Another season is wet season, like let's say from May to October, November, and it's raining more and waves are higher, wind is stronger, so it's like a rainy season. And I understood also like from locals and talking to them, and the coastline area is not having that same amount of rain, like for example the capital. We talk about taxes. Then if you are a tourist, you don't have to take care of any income tax because you're not living there. Sales tax in El Salvador is 13%, and if you're planning on living in El Salvador for a long time, so you are becoming a tax resident in El Salvador when you are there more than 200 consecutive days. And the income tax rate varies from 0 to 30% depending on your income. There are some exceptions for corporations, so as much as I'm aware and knowing the info from the country, if you are a tech company going to El Salvador, you are going to have a tax exempt for a couple of years, not to pay taxes in the country, but to be able to develop the country and help the economy. Housing is a big topic, and it's not simple to go into that topic because there are so many variables. Let's break it down into, if you're a tourist, and you probably might want to stay in the tourist area because it's maybe the simplest way. If you are for a week in El Salvador for a vacation, you don't want to deal with like a complicated where to stay, so probably you're gonna go, I guess, to El Zonte, or maybe you're gonna stay in San Salvador, the capital, and it makes everything much simpler. But you have to count with for example, these areas like El Zonte, they are pretty expensive. So if you go to a hotel, you're gonna spend like $200 a night, plus other expenses, food, restaurants, and so on. So it's definitely not cheap. Another option is to go a little bit off the grid, and especially if you're planning to stay long term in El Salvador and longer period of time, I would suggest to go to more like smaller other cities or villages on the coastline if you want to stay on the coastline. But still, the coastline is pretty expensive. Even Airbnbs are expensive. Another option is that you're going to outside of the coastline, more in the country, within the countryside. To just give you a perspective, on the coastline, we've been able to find a pretty good rent, but just with the direct access to the sea, within the local community, not a tourist area at all. You can get it like for $1,500 a month if you're lucky. If you're off the grid, inland, not on the coastline, the difference is huge. I've been offered to have a rent within the countryside in a small village, and you can get like for $500 a month. So you are on a 1/3, the capital. So you can get in the capital, have a rent in the capital, and then it depends where you're gonna stay. The capital is big, and there are also huge differences between areas. But if you want a rent in a nice part, for example El Escalon, which is a nice part of San Salvador, having a rent, long-term rent, with a 2-bedroom, with some amenities like a grill on the rooftop and garage and so on. So you're gonna be maybe around like 1700-1800 a month dollars. So what are gonna be the other costs of living in El Salvador? I got my own data, what we're spending in El Salvador for other spending apart from housing, accommodation. And family of 3, living a normal life, no shopping spree, nothing like that. So you're cooking at home, you're living like a normal life, like you would be living anywhere else. So you're aiming at like $1,300 a month for groceries and some basic commuting that you need to go there and back. But at least 1,300, I would say we're pretty on the budget, like normal lifestyle. As much as I talked with locals, the minimum wage in El Salvador is like $350 a month. So you can imagine how it is. It's a minimum wage, I understand that, but from a minimum wage, it is not definitely easy to live in El Salvador. But another putting into perspective is that this minimum wage of $350 in El Salvador is the same like in Paraguay. It's also $350 a month as a minimum wage. But the difference is that your costs of living in Paraguay are gonna be half of what it is in El Salvador. The transportation in El Salvador, if you're a tourist, I definitely suggest, if you're planning to do a little bit road tripping within the country, suggest to rent a car. That might be the easiest way to do that. You're gonna spend around like $50 a day for a car rent, and you are mobile. If you're planning like living in El Salvador, option 1 is to buy a car, but I would say that maybe better deal might be to get a motorcycle, because it's pretty and fairly simple to get a motorcycle. Everybody's moving, a lot of people moving on a motorcycle. And if you have certain area where you're gonna have like a home base and doing the basic commuting, motorcycle is totally fine. Another option is that you can go for car sharing services, but Uber is working mainly just on the airport, and outside of the airport you are not gonna get many rides with Uber. The app that is working in El Salvador, it's called InDrive, and everybody's basically on InDrive. The difference is that if nobody's responding for your offer, you offer more money for a ride. So if you're gonna be moving with those services, InDrive is the app. And another option, really cheap one, is going by bus. The problem with buses is that there is not a timetable, really. It's like, hey, every half an hour, locals are going to tell you, every half an hour a bus goes around. You need more time traveling with bus, but you pay like $1 and you go with a bus. So it's really cheap to go with buses. And the last option is you just jump on a pickup truck. It's probably the cheapest way, and go from one city to another just on the pickup truck at the back with other people. So it's kind of like a common type of transport in Latin America. So you also might want to try that one. It's pretty common everywhere. Another option for transportation is try to do hitchhiking. I was really positively surprised because I was pretty skeptical. Trying to hitchhike these days, it's not easy. And so I was walking down the highway and saying, okay, I'll try to stop somebody, and it took me like 3-4 minutes, and yeah, somebody stopped. So I was positively surprised that it still works in El Salvador, and people are really awesome, trying to help. And this is one of the examples that they stop and they are, hey, where are you going? I'm gonna give you a ride. 75-year-old man who gave me a ride. He was just going to another village that was like 5k away. And I said, but I need to travel further down the road. And he said, no, don't worry, I'm going to take you there. So he took like a 20 miles or 30 kilometer detour just to give me a ride to my final destination. We were talking a lot. He was sharing a lot of insights about the country, about his life. And it was really amazing. So I was totally blown away how nice people are in El Salvador. With the language, it's surprising, but you're gonna be fine with English. So if you're not speaking Spanish and you don't feel comfortable, so you can live with English in El Salvador, especially in the zones where there are a lot of expats and tourism. Again, we have to mention El Zonte, that I've visited a couple of times, and you can feel it just entering the area. Is like you're on the streets and the first language you hear is basically English. But as I say, when you're moving to a country and you want to use the most out of that country and enjoy it, you definitely should speak local language. So speaking Spanish is going to open you new options, new horizons. You're going to understand much more. People will be more communicative with you because of speaking their language. You're gonna get also to better deals. You can agree on more things. You can do the right things for you on the market. You can enter more opportunities and encounter those opportunities on the market. In many countries in Latin America, you have no chance with English at all. But in Salvador, yeah, you can do it. That's not a problem, which is, I would say, a big plus for tourism. So, does it worth it to move to El Salvador? And that's the question that everybody has to answer for themselves. I can't say if it's a good or bad idea, but I can say what I have as an experience and what I perceive from that. Honestly, it doesn't make sense for myself. We've been in El Salvador to give it a try to live from Bitcoin. That was the main reason. Okay, can we live from Bitcoin in El Salvador? Like normal life as we've been living in other Latin American countries or Europe or US, anywhere? And the answer is, it's not possible. Look, or it is possible, but in the same way like in any other country. And I think that now I'm talking to many Bitcoiners that are like motivated to go to Salvador because it's the first country that adopted Bitcoin as a legal tender. So I believe the main motivation to move to El Salvador right now, as I can see, is the influx of Bitcoiners to the country. And the country is saying is free, and there are more options, and it is great to live in El Salvador. And I have to say that they are partially right, because the country, what I perceive, is gonna be booming. Okay, moving to El Salvador, you're gonna be living in the economy that in the next 5 to 10 years is gonna be booming. It's gonna be booming in tourism. This is where I see El Salvador. Now you can see a lot of investments from outside the country, foreign investments in the infrastructure, building new services, like a new port is going to be built there, what I've seen. A new library is built, what I've seen. And it's everything with external money coming in the country. So what I see and envision for a future is that El Salvador is going to be like another touristic country, because it's offering safety, it is close to the US, and it's gonna be somehow competing on the marketplace with other well-known behemoths like Mexico, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Panama, those destinations where a lot of Americans are going for vacationing. And now that Salvador, with all the economical development and a lot of external investment, might be starting to play a big part on that tourism market. As of business opportunities, there are gonna be new business opportunities because there will be a lot of real estate development in the country, especially on the coastline. And I believe there will be a lot of like building new apartment buildings with condos for sales and buying of properties there, offering tourist services. So it might be a good idea for some to move to El Salvador. But if you're gonna be living outside of those Bitcoin communities, don't expect, at least for now, to be able to live from Bitcoin. I believe that in the future it might happen, and I believe that it's important to grow a Bitcoin adoption from the bottom. So it's all about like community leaders, the same community leaders that they build up as El Zonte area or Berlin area, and there is a local community that is growing. There needs to be some community leader doing vendors onboarding in every tiny village or city and explaining a local population how to use Bitcoin and why it might be beneficial for them. Till that time, it's not happening. And for myself, living from Bitcoin in El Salvador, at the end of the day, and being outside of those specified communities is the same like living from Bitcoin in Paraguay, or living from Bitcoin in Europe, or living from Bitcoin in the US. I believe that the country has a lot to offer for some people, and I believe it's a really interesting country for a lot of Americans and a lot of American Bitcoiners to relocate to El Salvador, because it might be cheaper lifestyle, and they can, especially if they have income from outside the country, so they can use the benefit of having foreign income and spending it in the local economy. As a conclusion, I can say one thing, and that is that it's definitely worth visiting the country because everybody has different needs, and what I see as a downside, other people might see as an upside. So I don't want to right now say that is the only one point of view, like what you can do in El Salvador, and what doesn't fit to myself might fit to you. So just definitely check it out. You can do 1 month visit in El Salvador, so you can check on the local stuff, how everything works, how it is, if it fits your lifestyle. If it's not, you can try another country. But I'm happy we've done that, and I'm happy that we've tried to say, okay, let's go, here's the Bitcoin wallet and let's spend it. But at least we know where we are now. We know how it looks with the adoption, and I just want to say, community leaders in El Salvador, stick to the work you're doing. It's just about finding more Bitcoiners that can spread the message, within the local community, and onboard more and more vendors, seeing that there is a benefit in owning and using Bitcoin for daily transactions. It's just about that work. It's not about the government. It's just about the hard work from the bottom. And Salvador might be a Bitcoin country in the future. Fingers crossed. It's gonna be hell of a work, but I believe you can do it, and I'm gonna be really happy watching it. And I'm not saying I'm not coming back to El Salvador. I might be coming to one of the expos in El Salvador, and I'm definitely going to be happy to return back to see the improvement. And believe me, El Salvador is going to be booming in the next 5 to 10 years. I would appreciate much if you give me a follow on Twitter, on Nostr, and sign up for my blog where I discover and write about life in Latin America, payments with Bitcoin, and so on. So I would appreciate you much. If you don't know Nostr yet, try it, sign up. It's totally decentralized network where you can communicate with others without any oversight from a third party. So yeah, check it out. Thank you for watching, and hopefully to see you next time. I might be doing if some relevant topic might appear. Okay, see ya.